Hey guys, this is Anthony Bandiero with John Ween. We're here with Blue to Gold Law Enforcement Training, bringing another Search and Seizure show where we answer your questions live. And John's voice is a little harsh, a little hoarse. Is that what you say? Would we say it's a little hoarse? Is that what the word is?
Yes, I would say that.
Yes. But we actually still have a lot of good information for you. So let's stick around a little bit. And also, what I want to start off with is for those who are new here, you have not seen this. We answer your questions live. It's kind of like the idea. The ideal scene here is to almost have it like a radio show. Now, somebody asked us on the audience, "Hey, where are you guys broadcasting from?" I am broadcasting from Castle Rock, Colorado, and for the first time ever, John and I are in the same state. John is in Firestone, Colorado, which is what? How many miles from here? Maybe 40 or 50 miles from here?
Just about the other side of Denver.
The other side of Denver. So John is north of Denver, and I am south of Denver. So I'm glad you guys are here. Now, so John, just so you know, John's voice, he's been teaching all day, and I actually have some stuff that I bring with me for this very issue, and I just wish I can teleport this stuff over to your room because this stuff is magic. It's like it's called like barking root or something like that. It's a funny name, but it's actually they say it's what Taylor Swift uses, and despite that, I still bought it. All right. Yeah, DoorDash. I might have to get this stuff to you. Sounds like The Godfather. That's awesome. Gary, okay. So look, let's get the first person on deck here is a guy. Let's see if he is here. Peter. Where is Peter? So let me text message Peter here. Peter from New York. Are you here and I just don't see you? Peter from New York. If you're here, identify yourself. Oh shit. Okay. Hey, Rick. So it looks like he didn't, he was looking for a link. Rick, I just emailed you and Peter, just an email to write him back and get him onto this webinar so we can answer his question. Okay. Coolio. All right. I guess he didn't realize he was supposed to join actually. All right. So look, I have some questions and I want to, I have my iPad here. And, we have a bunch of questions and so forth. So let's kind of start with it while Ricky works on getting our first caller. Actually, first of all, before we even start, here's the rules of engagement. If you get on this webinar and you say, hey, I have a question, and all you got to do is turn on your mic. If you do that, guess we'll give you Coin Blue Gold, right? The Love Line, or I will give you a book, any book that you want that we produce, and I'll sign it personally, or John will sign it personally. Okay. If John signs it personally, it's a little bit more work because I said it to him first. But the point is that we want you guys to get on here. Who wants the challenge coin and who wants or a book for asking a question live? That's like no camera. Just ask your question live on a microphone. Okay. I know you guys have questions. Any question, any search and seizure question, ask. All right. I want to see me. I have a question, whatever it is. Oh, okay. Hold on. Peters. All right, Michael Brave. Michael Brave. And I'm kind of scared, actually. Michael, are you sure? You're not trying to set me up, are you? Because you're like the smartest guy in the room. Hold on one second. Me email all right, Mike. I'm gonna take Tanner first, only because Mike, I'm a little scared of you. So let's do Tanner first. I'm only joking with you, Mike. You know that. All right. Okay, good. All right. Tanner, you should see a thing pop up. What's up, Tanner?
Can you hear me?
Hey, buddy, loud and clear. First of all, where are you a cop in? What state? Or you can say department too if you want to, but either way, what state?
In Missouri.
Nice. I love it. All right. So what's your question?
So with search and seizure takes with the infotainment systems in vehicles now, at my department we talk a lot about that. Whereas, you know, can you search if you get consent to search a vehicle in all of its contents, are you able to search the infotainment system further on as far as like a DWI investigation or maybe drug interdiction or anything like that if you have consent? I know some people still say you should get a search warrant. However, does the consent still apply to the infotainment system, even though you're going kind of like in maps or in messaging or
Right.
whatever?
So stay on. So I got your answer. And John, I'm trying to, I count on you for a lot of this stuff, but if you want to say something, just raise your hand because I want to, make sure your voice is relaxed a little bit. But here's the answer. Okay. In order to have valid consent of the infotainment system, you have to have three things. Number one, the consent has to be voluntary. That's fine. Just means that it's not coerced, right? Number two, that you have to ask the right person. You can't ask, the passenger of an Uber driver for consent to search his car, right? I mean, obviously so you have to have the authority. That's the authority. So you have voluntary authority, but really what you're getting down to is scope. Did your consent to search reasonably include the infotainment system, which is really where the next question comes into. So if you say to a person, hey, can I search your car for drugs or contraband, right, Tanner?
Yeah.
Do you think a reasonable person would believe that includes the infotainment system?
No, I would say probably not.
Right. Now, let's say this. Hey, let's say you ask a driver, hey, are you trafficking narcotics? And the person says, no, I'm not. Can I search your car for evidence of trafficking narcotics? And let's say they're on the highway, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's also say that maybe the cop mentioned, man, your travel plans, I got to be honest, like they seem a little hokey, You're saying that you're traveling across the country because you want to see the sights, in and you want to see the Grand Canyon. But I got to say to you, it's the Grand Canyon's, we're around the Grand Canyon, but it's 2:00 in the morning. Can I search your car for evidence of drug trafficking? And the person says, yes. Is it possible that there's an argument that when you asked all these questions and you said, I want to search a car for evidence of drug trafficking, it may include Google Maps?
But I'm sorry, it's kind of
Yeah.
now on mine. I apologize.
That's okay. But the point is what you asked for, it defines the scope of search. The question at the end of the day is not where the cop thinks the evidence will be found, right? What they're looking for. It's what did this person agree to? Would a reasonable person, not this particular person, but would a reasonable person believe that when you ask to search their car for evidence of XYZ, they would contemplate, right? That's the right word, by the way. They would contemplate that you would have searched their infotainment system. And that's the answer to your question. And by the way, we need more facts, right? Do you have an example of what you asked them and like they said yes to, so I can kind of get a context of what they're agreeing to?
No, we had another training class that came up as far as like new information that's coming in through the infotainment system. And it was a special prosecutor that came into our state talking about like a DWI that involved a death.
Mhm.
And so they said, obviously go with the search warrant. You're safer that way, obviously. However,
Sure.
never really went full in depth with consent and the pros and cons and just how we are right now about that. So it's just kind of like a more open-ended question rather than
I see. Look, I got you. I got your advice, though. I think first of all, Tanner, I think it's a great question. And I'm not against consent. I really not. I know a lot of people like, oh, warrants are the way to go. I don't know how John feels about that. Maybe he's different on this, but if you have consent, you have consent, but you just need to articulate it. A consent is obviously a recognized exception. It goes back to the founding fathers, right? Consent has always been there. I just think that if you're going to search the infotainment system for a DUI suspect who killed somebody, that conversation better include something, in my view, something about searching their infotainment system. If like, hey, can I search your car for evidence, of this issue? Can I check out your car? Can I look in your car? I don't think that's enough personally to contemplate that you're going to be downloading the black box through the OBD module. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not what people think about when they say, can I look through your car, for example? But maybe looking on the maps, I don't know if that, maybe they have their origin of their trip was from the bar, but it needs to be the person who's like, yeah, when he asked me for my consent, it is reasonable for me to believe that he was going to look in the infotainment. That's your answer, but it should include something more than, can I just search your car? John, generally speaking, would you agree with that?
I would. I think scope is the issue. And Anthony, what if we're doing the interdiction thing? What if you say, can I search your vehicle, just for where you've been, where you're going, where you're coming from?
Yes. I think if that is the conversation, and they have first of all, that's not OBD, right? That's not downloading the system. But if you said that, I think a person could contemplate, hey, can I look in your car for evidence of where you're coming from, where you're going to? I think that would include the GPS. I do. But not text messages, right?
Mm.
I mean, I probably not. So great question, Tanner. You good? Tanner, you good?
Yes, thank you very much.
Awesome. And I'm gonna let you go right here, but please email richard@bluetogold.com. Say, hey, this is Tanner. I was on the show last night, or today, whatever, and get something from us, right? Just go a challenge coin, a book, whatever. All right. Let's Patrick. Let's do Patrick real quick, and then I'll do Peter if he's on. Okay. So Patrick, let's do Patrick. I'm worried about you, John. You better do that lemon, and you better be eating or drinking honey by the gallon here. Patrick. Okay, Patrick, you're on deck. The love line.
Hey, how you doing? I'm coming from Las Vegas Metro PD.
Dude, look at that. Look at that great profile pic you got, my friends. Looking good, man.
Oh yeah.
What you got?
So in Metro, for the other officers, we have the 60-minute rule when detaining someone here in Nevada, and we have a division from traffic officers and patrol officers. Traffic officers are the ones that investigate traffic collisions. Patrol officers don't.
Yep.
Patrol officer gets arrived on scene and tells the driver of a collision that, hey, traffic's en route. It's going to be a while. Don't leave until the traffic officer gets here. The patrol officer stays on scene. Does that start the 60-minute timer?
That's a great question. So just so that people understand the context here. So it's, Nevada, not Las Vegas Metro, but Nevada is one of the only states in the union, by the way, that has any kind of time limit restriction on investigative detentions, right? And so it's 60 minutes in Nevada, which is very low. And the only one I heard, and John, I don't know if you can confirm this for me, but I heard that New Hampshire is 4 hours, that they have a 4-hour rule there. But I don't think whether that's true or not, but I don't think any other state has this. Now, so the point of this is that once you detain somebody, then the question is, if you detain somebody, you got 60 minutes to build probable cause. And in Nevada right now, it's the way I interpret the statute is you got 6 minutes to develop probable cause to arrest the person. If you don't have arrestable offense after 60 minutes, they have to be let go. So far, so good, right, Patrick?
Yep.
Now, here's the deal. Generally speaking, with these crash investigations, it's going to be 98% consent. These people do not want to leave. They want the traffic units to do the investigation. They may not be happy about how long it's taking, right? Because, the traffic units in Metro are motor units, and sometimes they have to take a while to get to the scene, but they don't want to leave. They want the insurance information. They want the investigation because whatever. But at the end of there's also an obligation to report an accident, right? But it is an unsettled issue. If they're the victim of the crash, if they are clearly, there's no probable cause as to them, they were not the one that ran the red light, they were smashed into from behind, whatever, and it's been over 60 minutes, and they are begging to leave, and they have supplied all the information needed under NRS, I think they have to be let go.
If they are the suspect.
If they're a suspect, likely you already have probable cause. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
well, it's for the patrol officers that are not certified in vehicle collision or dynamics.
I know, but at this, I get that part. But at the end of the day, you're saying they're a suspect. Probable cause is a fair probability. It's just, right? A fair probability that they are they are the violator. My view is that if they are the violator, if they are the suspect in the crash, I don't see, because we also have some, it's hard to say because we have no case on this in Nevada, not even remotely close to this, right? All these cases in Nevada have involved criminal conduct. But I would say to you right now, if they are the suspect in the crash and you are not certified to do that crash and we need a trained person to arrive on scene to finish that crash, I don't see how they are going to be let go at this point. But, that's my advice at this point.
All right.
Yep. It's a tough one though, because Nevada's that's a ridiculous rule, by the way. I hate it. But that's I think we just use good judgment. But also, you're trained in de-escalation, right? Most people are not going to challenge you on this too much. They're going to want to stick around and get the investigation done. But push comes to shove, if they're the suspect, I think there's limited authority to keep them on scene until the Tom unit arrives.
Yeah. All right.
No, you're welcome. All right. So that's good. Let's see if Patrick is here. So Patrick, let's see. Okay. So okay. Patrick Howell, right? New York? Just confirm with me that your last name is right, Howell? Or is it a different Patrick? Oh, no, so, I'm sorry. That's the wrong Patrick. My bad. Where are you though? I'm sorry. I said Pat. It's Peter. I'm sorry. It's Peter. Thanks, Peter. Brain fart. Man, but where are you there? I do not see you in the... Rick, I'm all jacked up. Do you see Peter? I do not see him. Where is he? There he is. Okay. What's up, Peter? Can you hear me? After all this work, Peter came in, the mic doesn't even work. Peter, is it working now? Fine, I got a plan B. I'm calling you right now.
What's up, man?
Hey, what's up, buddy? All right, so let's talk about why you're actually joining tonight, because we've been trying to connect for a while. Rick, can you hear Peter say something?
Say something. Can you hear me?
Yep, and then also turn down the volume on the computer so there's no echoing.
Yep, got it.
All right, so Peter, we tried to connect a while ago because I mentioned something a while ago in New York, right? And it was about the De Boer factors.
Yep.
De Boer is from a case, DABOUR, and it's interesting because New York, they're kind of weird in a few things, right? They're not a traditional Fourth Amendment state like Texas and Tennessee. They do things a little more, they're more restrictive there, and obviously that's probably apparent to most people in the room. But they have these weird, I call them weird, but they're these 4 levels of encounters, right? It's not like
Yes.
most states where you have consent, you have detention, you have arrest. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. I think saying weird is a fair assessment. So it's a weird thing. Back in 1976, people who De Boer, I think it was originally actually officers in Brooklyn, but yeah, I mean, there's another case if you want to look at it. It's People v. Heilman. It's 1992. They kind of reaffirmed that 4-tier approach.
Yep.
So, I mean, this is the only thing. The past 10 years as a police officer, I'm used to De Boer, so I don't necessarily know what it feels like to police without it, right? So I kind of got used to it. And I think there's a way that if you understand it, you can navigate it pretty simple, without complicating things.
Right.
And I think it's a lot with how you're trained on it too. In the training aspect of like, hey, this is what you can't do. That's probably what's going to stop people from actually being able to understand it and then use it on the street, right? So what you can do, I think, is more important. And just so everybody knows, so there's the 4 levels, right? It's request for information, it's that common law right to inquire, or that found in suspicion, right, up to. and then reasonable suspicion and probable cause. Reasonable suspicion and probable cause, pretty simple. I mean, everybody across the board, it's that same standard, right?
All right, so
There's a couple different nuances.
slow it down a little bit. Slow it down a little bit because I think we're skipping over the fourth factor. So the lowest encounter you can have in New York is common law right of inquiry, right?
So the lowest level of intrusion, all right, it's level 1, DeBoer would be request for information.
Request for information. Okay.
Yep. So we want me to break it down kind of.
Please, just give us
one.
examples, because I know what's weird about that. Again, I say weird. I'm not trying to be insulting, but
Yeah.
what's interesting, it's different about this is that depending on what questions you ask and how you ask it, this is my understanding, depends on what level you're at. So first encounter, you can go up to somebody and do what?
Yeah, so essentially, I mean, it has to be, more than a mere hunch or a whim, right? But
Yep.
the reason to gather that information may relate to a public safety service function, a law enforcement function, but it does not need to be based on indication of criminality, okay?
Yep.
So you go out, you step out with somebody, you engage them in conversation, right? It's their constitutional right, whether they want to respond to your request, right? They can say no, they can walk away.
Yep.
You can't forcibly detain them at that point, right? You can't seize them. It's literally just that. It's requesting information. And at that time, like you stated before in your past video, if they begin to lie or something happens, maybe unobtrusively you watch them walk away and they throw something of contraband, right? You can see that, right? That kind of raises your level to board right away.
Then you go to the second level. Go ahead.
Yep. So the biggest thing when I talk about level 1 stuff is the considerations. They seem kind of trivial, but like these factors are important, especially if officers are going out there on a level 1 to step out with somebody. And I talk specifically about street encounters when it comes to the board stuff, and I'll get into the other things. But being in full duty uniform and operating a marked car, right? Most people will be, right? So that's something to consider. How many officers are present at the time? Is your hand on your gun? Are your lights and sirens on? These things, although they seem kind of trivial, they are very important at level 1 analysis, right? So even more, like if your vehicle's positioned in a manner that would impede or restrict somebody's movement, okay? So there's a case that came out back in 2004. They talked about, if an officer approaches somebody at that level 1 request for information at an unduly intense manner, meaning lights and sirens are flashing and the kind of things I just talked about, it would be unlawful, okay?
Yep.
So, and then same thing, when it comes to vehicles, there's case law out there where if a vehicle is stationary, it's parked, you didn't do anything to, deactivate your lights or sirens. You didn't, for all intents and purposes, seize that vehicle under a traffic stop situation, right? You kind of just walk up to it and engage that person in conversation. It's essentially the same as engaging somebody on the sidewalk, right?
Yep.
But then there are some factors that I'll get into when it comes specifically to vehicle stops, what I think is very important for some officers to understand. But I don't want to skip ahead if we can continue.
So look,
if there are any other
level
questions
1. So level 1, we have most cops here are not New York cops, but what I want to do is when we I want to produce this on a YouTube channel because a lot of people I think are going to find this useful, especially for our New York officers, right? So level 1, and actually Mike Brave put some information here. It's basically objective, credible reason to approach and request information. Hey, do you know anything about this? Do you know anything about that? Right? They have no reason to believe they're detained or in trouble. I think that's how I look at it. They don't think they're in trouble. So far, so good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they should feel like they're the targeted investigator.
Correct.
So the encounter should be brief, non-threatening. If they voluntarily choose to answer your questions and lie, obviously that can help build your
That's
rapport.
right.
Right.
Yep. Yep. And so let's kick it up to the next level. So let's say now you start thinking, man, they are lying. They are acting suspicious. What's level number 2?
All right. So then going up. So again, and these are the levels of intrusion, right? So now we're going up to a next intrusion level, right? So level 2. So common law right to inquire. Also, we use found in suspicion is another kind of like a found in suspicion of criminal activity afoot, right?
Yeah.
Other cases are interpreted different. They kind of say present indication of criminality based on observable conduct or reliable hearsay. So
Reliable hearsay.
essentially
Okay.
this one, yep. So essentially this one is more, the most important thing I think everybody should know is that it's the first permissible level of the board where you can ask for consent to search. You can ask for consent to search a person, right? Vehicle, property of that person, right? You can do knock and talks at level 2. in these questions, right? So you can be a little bit more accusatory, I guess. They can be more extended, incriminating in nature, right? The person can feel like they are the subject of the investigation. The most important thing is that you can't do a forcible detention, right? You can step out, continue to talk to them, ask more like questions as far as where they're traveling, where they're coming, where they're going, kind of start to break down their story, right?
Yep.
And I'll give you an example where there's a case in our fourth department here, our court of appeals, that an officer essentially, he approaches somebody that's in a high crime area that was involved. There's gunpoint. They go to the they see a guy walking the street, matching the description, and he's got a ski mask on, right? They step out and talk to him.
Yep.
He's like, yeah, I live right over there. He points to his house. And he's like, I was just walking my dog. They look over, his dog's actually out in the yard. So that kind of makes sense, right? But then the officer then asks, hey, he inquires about the bag that the guy's carrying. The guy lets him search the bag. He finds a gun and marijuana in there. They end up, it was a suppression issue because he wasn't even at level 2 DeBoer to ask for consent in the first place, right?
Wow.
It's done, I mean, you can articulate, but I think what the thing is like, once he confirmed that his story made sense and he wasn't lying, it's like, yeah, I actually live right there, and I was walking my dog, and it's cold outside, so I'm wearing a ski mask.
Right.
Right. That's kind of innocuous behavior, right? So then, if you really break it down that way,
Right. Now, just to be clear, though, in 49, well, New Jersey actually might be another one of these, but in the vast majority of states, you could still ask for consent from that guy, right? Just not New York. Just not New York.
So I mean, if you can, and this is like, he steps out, maybe they can articulate stepping out at level 2, but once they confirm based on his question that he answered voluntarily, that kind of lowered it back to a level 1. So the courts looked at it as he was never at level 2 at the time, right? So, but yeah, to your point, if you're at level 2, you can ask for, you have a found suspicion, you can ask for consent, right?
Yep.
And I think that's a big thing that and consent, I know you've talked about it too. And the biggest thing is it's got to be voluntary, right?
Yep.
That's the biggest thing. It's the most burden proof that you have to prove when you're talking about consent. But there's another little like thing where, especially with our DA's office, they do a great job. We have a great relationship with them, but they also want to see that there is a found suspicion. It's a well-established found suspicion coupled with the voluntariness of the consent, right? So they're going to look at both of those factors.
Okay, but very key. So you at level 1, you can't ask for consent or knock and talk, which is
right.
Again, I actually didn't know that. So all right, level 2, found the suspicion. You can ask for consent. You can be a little bit more accusatory, like, hey, it's kind of odd that you're here at night, 2:00 in the morning behind the store that's closed, right?
Yep.
And then level 3 is probably what everybody knows, and that's the good old fashioned Terry stop. Is that accurate?
Yep, that's right. So when you could talk about a certain little like different things when it comes to reasonable suspicion with DeBoer, but yes, and I think it's good to note that the Terry stop, right? Just because you have the reasonable suspicion doesn't automatically furnish the Terry stop, right? You have to have that armed and dangerous component, right? With the Terry v. Ohio versus and the level 3, and so when I say level 3 for our reasonable suspicion, but there's our CPL and our actual procedure law, they actually have a different definition of kind of how they describe the armed and dangerous component.
Mm-hmm.
If New York officers probably want to know this, let me look and just want to make sure I say it the right way here. It's basically if any time the officer stops somebody and they believe that they're in danger of physical injury. Okay.
Yep.
So it's a physical injury component versus armed and dangerous versus Terry v. Ohio, but it's very similar. But they're going to place an analysis on that level 3. So you have to have level 3, crimes being potentially committed, right? And then you have to have the armed and dangerous component as well.
So hold on. So you're saying that in order to have a level 3 detention, you have to have both? The person has to be.
No.
Okay, it's just when you said Terry stop. So okay.
Just for the Terry frisk, yeah. So the Terry frisk, just because you're at level 3 doesn't automatically give you the Terry frisk, right?
Yeah.
So you're at level 3, you can forcibly stop and detain somebody. You can conduct a path frisk, right? We say for officer safety, but we know that these days, right, generalizing officer safety, you have to articulate that you also have that kind of armed and dangerous component, right? But let's see.
Okay, no, yeah, that's good, right? So level 3, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yep.
So going back a little bit just to level 2. So we talk about like a high level 2. Sometimes we'll say instead of a level 3, right? So a high level 2 would be like you have 3-4 reasons why you believe you have like this found suspicion. It's a well established found suspicion on level 2. coupled with flight, right? So if somebody then you're at level 2, you have a well-founded level of founded suspicion, then somebody flees, right? Evasion, that may amount to a level 3 encounter, right? So, combined with that specific circumstance that indicating the person may be engaged in criminal activity, right, will give rise to that predicate, right, to that police pursuit. So, if you have that level 2 founded suspicion, it's a well-founded suspicion. Plus, you have other aggravating factors, right? With flight, could lead to level 3. Okay.
Okay. Good.
Let's see.
Yeah, and kind of do a let's do a Reader's Digest on this. Let's kind of wrap this up so that because I don't want to get to a few more questions. So this is actually very interesting though. So what other training points would you want these New York officers to know? I think a lot of people find this kind of interesting, by the way, because it's different policing, right?
It's tough. We obviously have a little bit of just our constitution a little bit more strict, right? I get it. So, all right. So the other thing I'd point out that for vehicle stop stuff, right? So if you, and if I ask the class this and say, hey, raise your hand if you've ever stopped the car based on normal traffic violation, right? Predicated solely based on traffic violation, you ask somebody out of routine, hey, do you have any weapons in the vehicle, right? Do you have any weapons or anything I should know about in the car? Okay. So that has came up in suppression issues in New York State. Okay.
Sure.
So in order to even ask that question, weapons, you have to have a found suspicion in the first place, right? So you have to have a level 2. So you may have a traffic violation at tail light out, right? So that's your level 4 PC to stop the car. But once you stop the car, as you approach, you're back at level 1.
Yeah.
And then further your investigation, right?
Right.
So it's important that your questioning should cover the scope of the traffic infraction until you start to furnish more information, maybe building up that level to level 2. Once you have a found suspicion, you can then start asking for consent. You can start asking about, weapons in the car, right? Yep. There's a quote from a judge that came out in 2012. He says, New York is the only state of the union that forbids police officers to talk to people they meet in the street unless certain preconditions are met and requires the suppression of evidence derived from a forbidden conversation. Today, the majority needlessly expands the already hyper-stringent role of the border by limiting a police officer's ability to address a question to the occupants of a lawfully stopped automobile. I mean, that was like hitting the nail on the head. I mean, that talks about
it does
just it's weird. I mean, you ask a question that might furnish what you kind of say verbal probable cause, which I've brought in the past, right? Yep. You might ask somebody, hey, I do have a gun in the car. Okay, well, that if you didn't have that level 2, it'll likely get suppressed.
Yep. Now there are, just so you know, Oregon is like that too, by the way. Oregon, you cannot ask about weapons without reasonable suspicion. So it's not the only state, but it's but you guys, Oregon and New York have things in common. Sometimes you guys like criminals more than your cops.
Yeah, it's and I get it. I think, and we've all established basically case law that traffic stops are more dangerous, right?
Sure.
So asking for weapons, that's one thing. But if you ask for anything illegal in the car, that kind of encompasses a lot of other things, right? It could be a bunch of different other things. So you really have to be careful. You got to really make sure that you have that found suspicion about asking if anything is illegal in the car. It's actually even more.
That's even more. Oh, absolutely. That's even like weapons. I that's what I don't agree with, right? I think a cop should know whether even if it's a legal gun. I'm a Second Amendment advocate. But hey, I mean, if you have a gun, first of all, I don't disarm everybody. I stop, right? That's not me. I'm not scared of guns like that. If I stopped an off-duty cop, am I going to disarm that person? Of course not. But I would like to know the gun is in there, wouldn't you? Right? I mean, just hey, don't show yours. Don't pull yours out. I won't pull mine out. Don't turn that into sexual, John. But the thing is, it's a legit question. So, and that's too bad that you can't ask that, just like in Oregon. Okay, so. Go ahead. What else you want to add about that? We good with the car stops?
Yeah, no, I think that's. I mean, obviously we can talk about this for a long time, but I think hopefully this will create a little bit more questions. I think, and some dialogue, and then next time we can talk a little bit more.
I would love to have you on. Like we're starting some our podcast back up and so forth. It'll be actually nice to actually we'll set up the camera and also. But by the way, I don't want to just talk about the board. I would love to pick your brain about other things that are going on in New York. For example, we can't start this conversation now because we're going to be out of time. But I've been reading some cases where passengers, the New York Court of Appeals and so forth will say passengers are not free to leave. You can kind of order them out of the vehicle and so forth. But if they running from the car, if they're not the target of the investigation, running from the car is not in itself suspicion. Have you seen those cases?
So I'll give me 2 seconds and I'll hit that in there just in case officers are watching this from New York State. I'll make it very easy. Okay. So at the end of the day, we know we have the Brennan case, we have Pennsylvania v. Mims, we have the Maryland v. Wilson, we have all that stuff, right?
Yep.
We understand that people are seized, passengers included, right?
Yep.
But they're not seized technically particular to a crime that they committed, right? So
So far,
understand that a passenger fleeing in your state, unless you have other aggravating factors to believe that they may have committed a crime, right? Other individualized reason suspicion, right? You cannot do a forcible detention, right? So you have to have that individualized reason suspicion to support that investigatory
I know
stop.
it's a catch-22 though. They're not free to leave according to one New York case, but then if they run, they are free to leave. It's so
Yeah,
basically
you're
if
talking
you
about the New York case that came out,
Yeah.
was it the mid 2000s? I think I know what you're talking about. So,
Yeah.
and then another case came out to kind of contradict what they said, right?
it's kind of confusing.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll say this. So you have the legal authority to order a passenger to stay in the car. Okay. But if they begin to depart from that vehicle, you can only use a minimal show of authority, such as maybe verbal guidance or mere escorting, as long as it does not amount to a forcible seizure, unless there's individualized reason suspicion that they committed a crime. And then at that point, you forcibly detain them, right?
That's how I understood it, and it obviously there are brains being blown. Like so many cops are like, I have no idea how that even works.
Yeah.
You can tell them to stay, but it's an empty promise, or order.
Exactly. Yep.
All right.
You
All
can
right.
do it with some tact. I mean, you get better as you go and through experience, but
Yep.
yeah, it's a weird one. It's tough.
Dude, thank you for coming on. We are definitely not done talking. I want to actually, talk more about this, but I know a lot of people want to talk tonight. So
Yep.
I appreciate you, man. Thank you.
No, I appreciate you having me on.
100%. All right. All right. John, who's next? Do you know who's next? Or I know you kind of wrote a,
Kevin.
Kevin, yep. Loppy. All right. Kevin, you're up, right? Kevin. What's up, Kevin?
Can you hear me?
What's up, buddy?
Hey, appreciate it, guys. Hey, so I'm in Texas, and we don't have a tow authority to be able to tow a vehicle that doesn't have insurance. However, my agency gives us the authority to tow a vehicle that doesn't have insurance. How can a local agency give me authority for something that the state hasn't given me?
But when you say the state hasn't given you authority, what did you mean? They're silent on the issue, or does it actually say you cannot tow cars for no insurance?
No, it's it's silent on the issue, and I have a transportation code that gives you different reasons to tow a vehicle, and driving a vehicle with no insurance is not on that. And in fact, the DPS, their guidance is that they don't tow the vehicle if there's not proof of insurance attached. However, my department in our policy says that we should tow that vehicle.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't know if it's a constitutional issue as much as a tort claim, right? So,
Right.
I mean, it ain't a civil rights violation to be towed because you don't have insurance. I mean, people, the Fourth Amendment would recognize in many states under the Fourth Amendment that towing a car for no insurance could fall under community caretaking because that person could, get into an accident and can't pay the bills, right? But I guess the answer is, hey, if somebody gets their car towed and they sue your agency and like, what authority in Texas do you have to take my car? Based on what you're saying, which I'm not familiar with these laws, right? Because I don't really get into the weeds of some of these tow policy or tow laws, but I guess they would have a good argument that you owe them the tow bill. John, your thoughts on that?
No thoughts.
Yeah, it's just, yeah.
We have an officer that regularly would tow for somebody not having a driver's license, and that's not expressly stated in our policy. However, that officer just checks a box that he creates on one of our forms to tow the vehicle, creates his own box, and his idea is, well, if they continue to drive away from the stop, I'm allowing them to continually break the law in my presence, so I tow the vehicle, which we've had conversations that, hey, we don't have a tow authority for that. I worked in California for years, and we had a tow authority for everything. And here in Texas, it's a little different. And I'm trying to figure out a reason or a way. Do I actually have authority to tow that vehicle or not?
Well, first, there's two things I have an answer for you. But number one is Jonathan is saying that maybe because he works in Texas too, I assume, and he says that maybe are you Texas? Jonathan, are you in Texas? No, Alabama. But maybe local ordinance. But Kevin, you probably would have already known that, right? If your local ordinance allowed it, you would already know that, right?
That's good. As far as I can tell, there's no city ordinance for it.
Here, this is actually my personal advice. You know, I'm not your attorney, but I would say just follow the policy. And if, you know, the policy, you know, the only time you're not supposed to follow a policy or an order is when it's clearly unconstitutional. I can't see how this is clearly unconstitutional, and I can't believe, you know, you're violating people's rights like this. I think that, you know, maybe, you know, this is where lawyers get paid their money to litigate these things. If your agency is telling you, hey, we tow people for no insurance, and that's a direct order from your agency, I would just say, I think you comply with it. And if it gets litigated, you're caught in the middle. You're following orders, and it's not clearly unconstitutional either way, in my view. And, you know, I may not like, you know, you know what I'm saying? So I guess that's what I'm saying. It's like, at the end of the day, if your agency is making that policy, then they have to own it. And they're telling you to, that's my advice.
I'm just trying to make sure that I don't have a good case that gets kicked for something like, you know, not of the authority to actually seize that vehicle.
Oh, you may get a case kicked. You know what I mean? You may find a dead body in, you know, while you're towing the car for no insurance, and you may find a dead body in the trunk, and you may be wrapped up in a, a suppression hearing where you had no authority, no community caretaking authority in Texas to do that. But however, you are stuck in the middle. You know what I'm saying? Like, if your policy is telling you to do something, you do it, unless it's clearly unconstitutional, which it's not, right? I mean,
Right.
Not that I know of. I can't see that. So it's a tough situation. I wish I had an answer for you, but these things do happen. You know, policy sometimes seems to contradict what the state law wants, but it's not clear either way. I mean, that's why, you know, you'd have to look into the law in the Texas, them not including insurance. Does that necessarily mean they can't? You know, it's not beyond debate. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome, my friend. All right, who's next?
Joe Palesci.
All right. Joe.
Joe, you got a question for us?
So, Joe, do you have a question? Is actually Joe on here still? Do you see him or no? I don't see him. Okay. Anybody else have a question before we wrap this up? Okay. Jonathan does. Okay. Jonathan, you're welcome, Kevin. Absolutely. Oh, dude, that's gonna be awesome. So, Kevin's going to Craig Meyer's class. All right, Jonathan. There we go. All right, Jonathan, you're on the love line with John and Anthony.
Hey, can you hear me?
A little bit. It's a little low.
Still better.
That's actually better on my end. I turned up my volume too. What's up, man?
So if you have a abandoned vehicle in a public place that is unsecured, what level of community caretaking search can be conducted on that vehicle?
Are you from New York? Is that the accent that I hear?
No, Alabama.
I'm just joking. So I thought that was funny in my head, but you probably took it as an insult. You're like, we don't have the bore factors. So look, so first of all, community caretaking, right? What does your policy say about these cars, Jonathan?
It's left open.
It is. It's dealer's choice. It's up to you to secure the, you know, you have the authority on your policy to tow cars for safekeeping.
Yes, if they are in an immediate hazard, such as on the shoulder, could cause a traffic accident, a hill, a curve, something like that.
You don't have anything else that says something about the vehicle could be vandalized, or so the vehicle is just in a parking lot and it's left open, you said, right?
Right. Public parking lot, say city owns the property. Say
Okay.
It's like a public park.
Right. So there's nothing illegal about the car. If it was a car that was secured, locked, you probably would just keep on driving, right? Not a big deal to you.
Right.
But because it's open, you're worried about it.
Yes.
So here's my suggestion. Look, it is what, you know, people can put their property at risk, right? What I would say is your policy is the first thing we ask about any kind of tow is, what does your policy say? The other thing that we also can look at is your patterns and practice. Like, your policy is not going to have everything in there, right? Especially for tows. There may be situations where your policy is kind of silent about it, but your practice is, hey, if the car is left open and it seems like like it's valuable, it's a high crime area, people are going to steal this car, it's, and so forth, then, it falls into the tow policy, even though it's not written, if it's just part of your agency culture. That makes sense, right? But at the end of the day, Jonathan, here's what I suggest. If you can articulate objective reasons to believe that if you don't tow this, it's going to suffer harm, and in the RO, the registered owner is going to be, they would almost want you to tow it, then maybe you should tow it, right? And under community caretaking. However, I would not do that as the default rule. I mean, a lot of these cars are not that nice. The owners probably are not worried about being vandalized because maybe the car is not a Mercedes-Benz S63 AMG with the windows down, you know what I mean? And, somehow it's a public park. People do leave their cars there, sometimes unsecured. If the keys were in it, that'd be a different story, right, Jonathan? Because you don't want people to steal it. But I just think that you have to use, your best discretion here. And my default is don't tow it unless you have something specific that this car is going to suffer damage or vandalism. John, that's kind of my take on it. If I was the chief, that's what I would want my guys to do, right? What do you think?
Do you have any state law that dictates an amount of time equals abandonment, like a per se abandonment?
Yes,
It's parked for 72 hours.
yes, we do have a time frame. I think it's 72 hours.
Is that for parking lots or is that for highways though?
That's just for the roadways.
Exactly. That doesn't even apply to a park. Well, you may have a rule that you have to move the car every 24 hours or something like that, right?
No, we do not.
You do not. Okay.
I usually give it a few days before I deem it as abandoned, but sometimes you wind up with a vehicle that'll be there weeks if you don't take care of it.
I agree. I think that's another good thing to consider is that it's, just abandoned, right? They're not coming back for it. It's also a public park. It's common for people to leave their cars there for a few, maybe a day or so, but they just left that car and there's no evidence that they're coming back for it. And maybe there's a community caretaking reason. So I guess at the end of the day, there's, with these community caretaking tows, it'd be nice if the law was clear on it. Like the law tells you to do it. You can't leave your car in the parking lot. But if you don't have that, it's good old fashioned community caretaking, which requires objective facts that you're helping the person, right? You're not just towing it as a matter of just because I can tow it. You're actually trying to do something good. And that requires articulation. But I wish, again, does that help at all a little bit, Jonathan?
Yes, I don't think it'll change what I'm doing, but I was just wondering if I was leaving myself open to, possible legal trouble.
I don't think so. I can tell you right now, I can tell you that generally speaking, doing nothing is the least liability. Right? I mean, even John will tell you this, doing nothing is the least liability. It's very hard to sue cops because cops did nothing. It's when they do something, that's when the gates of litigation open up, because generally speaking, there is no obligation to tow people's cars from parks. There's no obligation, strictly speaking, to answer calls for service. We do it because it's the right thing to do. We do it because the community expects that from us, right? But how can, it's going to be hard to lay a claim against you because you left their property alone. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You didn't cause any, you didn't steal the car. You didn't take its rims. You didn't steal, something inside. So anyway, just so you know, it's a hard claim to make in any state, but it can happen, I'm sure. But it's when you do something, that's when you start opening yourself up to litigation. Okay. All right. All right. Thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right. So what do you think? Is that the last question? You can do one quick question if you, if not, we are good. We can call it a day. If anybody has one last question, say, I got one last question. If not, let's call it now. For those who came on the Search and Seizure show, one last one. if for those who came on the Search and Seizure show, please, if you want to a challenge coin or a book, please let me know. Javante. Hold on. There we go. All right. So Javante, tell us what state you're in, and also let's do Reader's Digest on your didn't even know what a Reader's Digest says. So many people are young. It's probably they're like, what do you mean a Reader's Digest? But give us a short and sweet question.
Yes, can you hear me, sir?
Loud and clear, my friend.
All right, yeah, I'm from Texas. I'm a trooper here. I've been a trooper for almost 2 years now.
Where you troop? Where you troop at, by the way? Where?
Odessa, Texas. So good old West Texas.
Okay, you know I'm teaching a lot of troopers. I'll be in El Paso teaching. I'm going. What do you guys have? 12 regions? Is that right? 12 regions?
7.
7 regions. I'm going to every single region teaching, just so you know. So we might cross paths, by the way.
Awesome.
Anyway.
I look forward to it.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. So, what you got?
All right. Just to ask or to add on to what we were talking about earlier with the towing thing. So where I work in Odessa, they just created a city ordinance about, I think it was beginning of this year, where they tow every vehicle that does not have insurance on it.
Okay.
And the reason that what I got told by their officers were, we have a lot of crashes out there, and a lot of them vehicles have no insurance, so they just kind of fed up with it. And they tow everyone that does not have insurance. And obviously, DPS, our policy, we don't tow cars if they don't have no insurance. We just write the citation or warning and then, get them on their way.
Yep.
But my question comes from one of my my good buddies. He had an incident. So I'm reading this from a text message, but basically he gets called to a single vehicle rollover crash around midnight on a weekday. The driver has odd travel plans from Arizona to Dallas for a Cowboys football game. They left the night before. He stated the driver was acting real weird, was not able to answer his questions. And the passenger was saying that it was because the driver was bipolar and hasn't been taking his meds. The passenger was acting weird as well, to the point where you want to search the vehicle, but it's upside down, so you can't. And based on the totality of the interview, he called a DRE to come up and conduct SFSTs on the driver. And the DRE basically stated that the driver was having a mental episode and was not under any drugs. The driver and passenger get transported by county EMS to a mental facility for him, where a bottle of fentanyl is discovered underneath the seat. They arrest him and book him in for possession of the narcotics. And the vehicle was released to the towing company. Then he said he wanted to get into the car and search for more evidence. Did he need to is it preferable for him to write a search warrant, or can he get into the vehicle off a warrantless search warrant?
So in Texas, you don't need a search warrant under the motor vehicle exception, nor does Texas DPS, right? So the policy does not require. So at the end of the day, you were at the crash investigation webinar, right?
Yes.
Does the officer have probable cause that there's more evidence in that vehicle?
Yes.
Is it on curtilage? No.
No.
Now, is it readily mobile? Actually, that is is that the question that we're kind of at right here? Is it readily mobile?
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
What would you suggest, John? What's your answer? Because with those, when the cars are all smashed up, but it is at the impound lot, what's your answer there?
Well, are you doing an inventory or are you doing a search?
So they did not do an inventory, is what I'm getting told from.
Let's just say they want to just search it. What would you suggest that they do? Probably going to be a search warrant, right, John? Because it's upside down, it's all smashed up.
Yeah.
So here's the
AAA rule's not going to apply.
No, I think we need a search warrant. I think John is correct. I think that I was leaning towards yes, because my default rule is yes. However, the fact that the car is upside down and it's completely demolished, we should get and it's also probably a high level case, fentanyl. You never know what you're going to find in that car. It might be cartel evidence. We don't want to lose the motor vehicle exception or have it more restricted. So because the car is so immobile.
Yes, sir.
Warrant.
Sounds good.
Yep, that's tell your friend. Okay, email Richard, everybody who's on the show tonight, email richard@bluetogold.com to say, hey, I was on the show last night. He'll give you some information. The last one, thanks, Javante, for coming on. The last one we're going to talk to is, I think it's Nora, and we're going to call it a day after that. So, but Nora definitely had a question. So let's do that, and let's end strong. What's up, Nora?
Hi, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, my friend. Where are you from?
Perfect. Omaha, Nebraska, OPD.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
So just a really quick question. I work out of the traffic unit. I work overnights. A lot of the times I don't have a caseload assigned to me because we work overnights.
Yep.
But a lot of the day shift guys will ask, hey, can you go by this house, look at this car, see if it's here? Because they also do hit and run investigations.
Yep.
If it's if the car is parked out in the street, I mean, I know that I can go in there, measure, take photos, it's on the street. My rule is if it's on the street, I can do whatever I want, but I know that I can take photos. The issue
it's
now
on the street, right? If it's on the street. Go ahead. Yep.
What we run into more and more now is questions about, like, you have a vehicle parked in the driveway and say there's another vehicle behind or whatever. If I go to their house, I'm not going to knock at the door 3, 4 o'clock in the morning to ask them about hit and run.
Correct.
But if I walk by it, or I'm able to see that there is damage, how much of, what am I allowed? Can I walk up to it, take pictures and say, hey, or if somebody were to question that, how could I best defend? Because it is in curtilage and the driveway is considered, or if it's parked in their, front lawn, whatever they do.
Right. The front lawn and so forth. So that's the threshold issue here before we can even answer yes or no is, do you believe, you're gonna have to make the judgment call, right? You're the cop on scene. You're the one that's going to go to court if something comes up on this. Do you believe that this is curtilage? And curtilage is treated like the home itself. So the factors, the primary two factors for curtilage is the proximity to the home. The closer you are to the home, the closer, the more likely you're on curtilage, right?
Mhm.
And the use of that area, which is for domestic life, right? Nebraska is a great state. A lot of people have a lot of land there, but they may have a lot of land, but they don't have a lot of curtilage. The other two factors that don't really apply here is enclosure. Sometimes there's like a fence around the front yard.
Right.
And also site screening. The reason I said it don't apply a lot, because usually driveways don't have a fence or site screening. You can actually see it from the street, but they're close and they have the use of it is parking your car in your front yard is usually considered part of domestic life, as long as it's not a huge yard, right? Okay, so you said it yourself. You said this is curtilage. And if you think it's curtilage, then we cannot go onto that curtilage without what we call crew, right? Have you ever heard NORA crew? You ever heard that acronym from Blue to Gold? So crew is whenever a Fourth Amendment issue is implicated, right? A search or seizure. And going on to curtilage is a Fourth Amendment issue, right? Because it's protected, right?
Right.
You need crew. The first thing is consent. C stands for consent. You don't have consent because 3 o'clock in the morning is not consent to even go and do a knock and talk. You're not going to be lawfully present at all. RE is recognized exception. These are pat downs, are recognized. Exigency, the emergency aid exception when you're investigating domestics, you get to go into people's homes if you have objective reasons to believe they're going to be harmed and so forth. You don't have a recognized exception. There is the crash investigation that we talked about in this webinar, and the motor vehicle exception do not apply to curtilage because there's no exigency at all, right? There's no urgency. And finally, W obviously is warrant. So unfortunately, because you do not have crew at 3 o'clock in the morning, you cannot go onto that person's curtilage and take pictures of that car and inspect things and look inside or, look at paint transfer and so forth.
Yeah, looking through the windows, all that.
No, but you can do whatever you want from the street.
Mm-hmm.
You take pictures from the street. You can look a little zoom. You can use a zoom lens. If you have a zoom lens on your camera, you just can't go on that curtilage because you don't have crew for that. There's no judicial authorization to do that. I mean, it's like almost like being in our backyard. We don't have the authority to do that. And that's the problem there.
Okay.
And it sucks, but it is what it is, and so.
Yeah, I just wanted to have a better understanding because there's this thought, we don't have a policy, the city does not, there's no city ordinance. And so there's always a lot of back and forth of, well, if you can see it, why not, take the photos? But like I said, more and more talk of the curtilage, area and
Yeah.
what that is becoming more and more prevalent. So
It's a huge issue. And I will tell you that, when John and I teach, like we will say, like, we'll ask cops, what's the number one thing that cops violate as far as like the Fourth Amendment? What issue in the Fourth Amendment do cops violate the most? And without question, it is curtilage. And because oftentimes they don't appreciate just how powerful that piece of land is protected in many ways. That driveway, that front yard is as protected as the kitchen. Not exactly, but damn close. And you can get burned really bad in there. So it is what it is. We're going to have to, the better way is let a day shifter do a knock and talk. And while they're going up to the front door, if it's part of the path to the front door, they can maybe, they can take some pictures and so forth, but they better be knocking on that door to try to do a knock and talk. If they're just going up there, taking pictures and leaving at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that's also a violation of curtilage.
right. And that was going to be my next follow-up, because essentially that's kind of what I do. I may not do photos or, take out my measuring tape, but I will walk to the door if it's still a decent time, or if I see a light on, people moving.
Sure.
And we have body worn cameras. So
You just want to,
I'll go back to my video and I'll be like, you can kind of see it there, but
that's
you know,
right.
I feel like that's covered, but then I'm like,
It is. Be careful. Look, I say cops, if you like, my traffic units, they can, as they're walking to the front door, they can click, they can maybe bend down a little bit and take a quick picture if they want to. The body cam is fine. Just be careful, because if it looks overly intrusive and it looks like the general public would never do something like that, they're just way too intrusive. I mean, the general public would probably look at a gash in the car and go, oh, that's interesting. They must have, but they're not going to do 360 photos. They're not going to do they're not going to do inspecting paint transfer. They're not going to do that. And it's you don't have consent to do that. So I'll just be careful getting too intrusive.
Okay, perfect.
Nora, you're awesome. I'm glad we got to your question.
Thank you.
All right, my friends. John, man, my heart goes out to you. Dude, I lost my voice and I was about to do a webinar like 10 minutes before the webinar. Was that you that I called to do that webinar, or was that Mike Boone? I forget. That was you.
Was.
So I know what you're going through, and I just hope you don't lose your voice. But I do still appreciate you taking the time to be here, at least for moral support. Garrett, John is teaching a very big class tomorrow in Firestone, Colorado. By the way, John, have you been to that department before?
I have, yes, several times.
It's a nice department, isn't it?
It is. Very nice facility.
It's very nice facility. But what you need, my friend, is, I don't know about, what helps me is hot water, like tea, all day long. Just pump that hot water down that throat. That'll definitely, hopefully help and so forth. Thank you, John. God bless you, my friend. I hope you feel better. If you call me and you say, I can't do the class tomorrow, I'm going to kill you. Just, there's that also part of it too. So you have more than your voice to worry about. Guys, John and I, thank you so much. This has been a really great Search and Seizure show. I think this is fantastic. Don't you think, John, with all these questions?
A lot of fun.
A lot of fun. Peter, thank you for your insight on the DeBoer factors in New York. I thought it was fascinating, and we need more time to talk about stuff like that. Until next time, my friends, we hope that we've helped you get it right every single time. Please share this with your friends. We'll see you guys next week. God bless you guys.